Hi, I'm Dr. Gerald Dees. Welcome to Health Center from Downstate Medical Center. Today we're going to go on a journey. We're going to go on a journey with a friend of many years, seeing him come and go, and out of the country, in the country, on the islands of Jamaica, the Barbados, and all the other places, the diaspora of the world, getting film on the history of African American people, where we or who we are. And that is a history that can be lost so easily when it's not done by us for us, because oftentimes when it's done by others, it has slanted things. I've seen so many times on CNN and all these other shows that they have on television, they'll talk about historians talking about things, but not the historian who has made the history. So we are going to be interviewing today a person who has made the history himself with his crew to show what really is behind us as a people, and for us, by us. You know, and so I want to welcome Clemson to us today. Clemson.
Thank you very much.
Clemson. And let's just before we go a little further, Clemson, just where you were born, maybe your status as a family member, the size of your family, and then maybe we'll get into your travels throughout this world on history of black folk.
Thank you, Dr. Dees. I was born in Lancaster, South Carolina.
Right.
Very large family. As I said, we just to give you the size of the family, we have family reunion every year.
Right.
And there's generally 200 to 350. Sometimes it's used to be 400 members come together. We would be like a convention at the Marriott or someplace. But we started out right in the front yard of one of my aunts in South Carolina on the farm, where we were all born and grew up.
Yes.
And we had moved to cities, different states all over.
Right,
but we would
sure.
come back, and we still come back every year together, and it's just a wonderful occasion. But my family is not the only one to have family reunions.
No.
Throughout the South, black people have family reunion, and that's something to be very proud of.
Oh, yes.
So I've come from a very close-knit family. We had.
That was South Carolina?
That was South Carolina.
Well, you know, my mom and dad, my mother's from Virginia, my father's from South Carolina, and they had, there was 8 brothers and sisters on each side of them. Now that's 16 aunts and uncles, okay? So when we had our reunions and so forth, it was the same kind of thing, because those people down there, I won't say that's all they had was children, but it sure looked like when you get them all together, that's all they had was children. But they had also at the same time could feed those children, because they could have fresh chicken, fresh vegetables, and
That's
things
right.
like pot liquor. You know, I just, before you get into your thing, I went, Reverend Sampson from Chicago.
Yes.
Reverend Sampson from Chicago. I was at the church a few weeks ago at Nazarene Congregational Church, where we met again at that time, and he told the thing about during slavery time, the people working in the kitchen could not take food home. Right. They only could take the pot liquor, the stuff that the food was cooked in, and they had mason jars, and they would take that, mix it with cornmeal, and of course, people couldn't understand why they were so healthy, because all the vitamins and minerals was in that pot liquor,
right,
you know?
Right.
And so he said, just think, something that saved us like pot liquor is a thing that's destroying us today. Not the pot liquor from the cooking, but pot, marijuana, and liquor, alcohol, is destroying us. And I had to jot that down real fast when he said it, because it was so crystal clear. Something that saved us, then something destroying us. Not anything related to alcohol and of course the marijuana, but how they're legalizing marijuana today. What's that going to do to our youth? We think alcohol and that marijuana is the most amotivational drug in the world. I mean, they try to stop green growing in countries when they see what happens to island people when you just say everything is okay. It ain't okay but they make it feel it's like it's okay, you know what I mean? So, but go ahead now. So basically you are, I'd like to, you had your families, and you're married, of course, and,
Yes.
and how many children do you have?
I have 2 children.
2 children, right?
Yeah.
And, but during your travels now, or during your things, you did other things before you got into filming. What drove you into documenting things? I mean, here you had a company at one time, I understand.
Construction
company.
21 men working for me. We did rehab for the city. We used to bid on those, city contracts. They had contracts with black,
Sure.
construction, and they had contracts for white.
Right.
Whites, of course, made so much more. And we did a lot of work in Brooklyn, and mostly Brooklyn, but some in Harlem. But I wanted to get to, because I want to take as much time as I can
Sure.
on our history.
Right, sure.
And that part of my life, the construction company enabled me to buy equipment and so forth, and I soon gave it up because once there was so much happening in the black community, I saw that we needed to document our history because, say for an example, with Randolph Evans, the young man I was telling you about that was shot in the head and murdered by a police officer in Torsley, and we would demonstrate in downtown Brooklyn because 95% of the shoppers in downtown Brooklyn are black, African Americans, Caribbeans, whatever, but they're black folk. And one of the largest tax base in the city was Brooklyn, so we figured that if we could just inhibit 10% of that revenue, it would so affect the tax base and affect the businesses down there that they would use their power to influence the city to do something about the rampant police abuse. One of our most potent weapons is our dollars. If we learn to keep our dollars in our pocket, not to spend. So Reverend Daughtry, Al Van, G2OC, number of other brothers and sisters, but essentially those came together to form that demonstration downtown. They were the thinkers behind it. And from that, we went to, the Hasidims, Crown Heights. We had a lot of difficulty with them because, of course, they were trying to take over the, not so much just the Hasidims, but the Jewish community, period, in terms of political power and the need to usurp that community and take it over. And so there was a struggle there in which we engaged. There was the struggle on the continent in which we got involved in. South Africa, for an example, when Nelson Mandela was in prison, and we would demonstrate against the South African embassy. All of these demonstrations and everything that the community was involved in, and the community was a lot more unified back then. I'm talking about the late 70s, early 80s, and so forth. And we were really having an impact. So when the Black United Front was organized and became the National Black United Front, you had people involved like Khalid Muhammad, the brother, bless his heart, has passed. But you had a December 12th movement. Everybody was kind of involved. Even Sister Soldier was in the Day of Outrage and so forth. So the community, that is what brought about the first black police commissioner, the first school chancellor, black school chancellor. That was Ward. Ben Ward, police commissioner Ward. Right. It didn't just come about, it came about because people were in the street. They were organized and they were engaged in fighting back and demanding access and more of a level playing field and so forth. So the city responded by appointing Ben Ward as police commissioner. We got our first black school chancellor, Richard Green.
Yes, sir.
Even the first
Fire
black
department commissioner.
yes,
Fire.
and the first black mayor.
That's right.
Mayor Dinkins. All of this came out of the resistance movement that was spearheaded, coming out of the same movement that I'm talking about.
Sure.
That was a response to the killing of Eleanor Bumpers and Yusef Hawkins and the Howard, the brother Howard Beach,
Sure.
and so forth. So the community at that time was more responsive in terms of fighting back than what it is today. So I documented all that. I was in the middle of it, trying to film all this so that we would have a record of our response to the issues and the events of our day. Even the Tawana Brawley rape, so forth. And these, and we didn't just, organize here in the city. I mean, we, say for an example, we went to Cuba because, and we showed what was happening to us here in this city, in New York and across. And we would show it to other movements in other countries to build an alliance with them and to generate sympathy and a working relationship. Right. Because there were movements all over, the Caribbean and in Africa that were trying to bring about equality and liberation for themselves. Sure. So I had the opportunity, even with Jesse Jackson, I was on the film crew. I was my own film crew, but I was with Reverend Daughtry. I traveled with him most of the places he went. And so he was a confidant of Jesse. So when Castro released 13 prisoners, political prisoners, when Jesse was running for the presidency of the United States, which in a way broke the ice so that later on you got Barack Obama, President Barack Obama, and that's a blessing. But all of that, I went to Cuba, El Salvador, Nicaragua, Panama, all those places with Jesse. I think in 1984 I probably had the largest independent documentation of Jesse's presidency of anybody. But I think what impacted me more than anything else was my travels to Africa. And my getting involved with African historians. Because at the House of Law, starting at the House of Law Church, program called APCO, which Charles Barron, who's now running for congressman, was also a part of. G2C, just a lot of people. Everybody came
I remember,
to APCO.
Yeah.
And I documented all those series. I made friends with a number of the African historians and traveled with them. Now, Dr. Ben came to the church and one Sunday and he heard me preaching. And afterwards he said to me, Minister Brown, he said, why don't you go to Africa? Why don't you come with me to Egypt and learn the truth? And when you come back, you will be able to preach or teach the truth about this Christianity. But you're not preaching, you're not telling the truth now. You're not preaching the truth because you don't know the truth. So why don't you come and let me show you where all of this comes from? So I took him up on it, and this was around it was in the 80s, maybe 84, something like that. And I went to Egypt with Dr. Ben, and boy, when I got to Egypt and I saw the pyramids, I was just blown away when he took me to all of the great monuments and all of the temples along the Nile and explained that this is your history. This is where all of this comes from. This is where Western civilization has its roots. They took it from your ancestors because this is what your ancestors left for you. So I would look at the step pyramids and the Abu Simbel we would go down to. We would look at all the and Dr. Ben would teach, because in the evening we would have these lectures. Dr. Ben is responsible for so many of us getting our eyes open.
Sure.
That is critical. If you do not know your history, you cannot be yourself.
That's right. Surely.
Your history, knowledge, is what gives us the capacity to expand, to achieve, to be. Without knowledge, you are like a tree without roots, without the knowledge of your history.
Sure.
So I was overwhelmed. So I went to Egypt with Dr. Ben for the next 9 years. I made 9 trips with Dr. Ben. I started to travel with people like Dr. Jeffries. He gave tours to Ghana. He had the Black Studies departments here, which was at City College, which was teaching African history. And then we would do these pilgrimage to Africa, to Ghana, the slave dungeons and the history of slavery and how it came about. And just, I mean, to be exposed to all. I fell in love with Africa. I mean, I spent as much time back and forth in Africa as I did here. Once I went and saw the people and fell in love with the people, and especially in Ghana, and to realize that there was a love affair between the Guyanese people, between Ghana and African Americans, because Kwame Nkrumah, when they won their liberation from Britain, invited a lot of African Americans to come to be a part of his government.
Sure.
Dr. Clark was one of those. And so Ghana has a long history with African Americans because Kwame Nkrumah went to school here.
Yeah, sure.
And so he knew of our struggle. So Black Star in Ghana, which is one of the major centers there, where they have, you know, a very large stadium and so forth, Black Star, came from Marcus Garvey.
Sure.
And Ghana has instilled so many African Americans, and I used to go and document these installments to restore them to their rightful dignity as chiefs and persons of importance, and to, again, from the village level, bring them back into the community with authority and with respect. And so many of these installments are not just ceremoniously, but they're in actuality giving them power and respect and a position within that African community, so we can again be one people, one. This is critical for us to look to Africa. Africa is where everything comes from. Everything came from the foundation. Even the spoken word is African. If you look at mathematics, if you look at science, if you look at religion, if you look at chemistry, if you look at biology, if you look at any of the sciences, any of them, if you look at science, period, astronomy, all of it comes out of Africa. And when you travel along the Nile Valley, that is the greatest repository of wisdom, world civilization. It is not the only, because writing, all of the alphabets come out of Egypt. but they come out of Nubia. All of this is our history. We gave the world the foundation for all of its knowledge, all of it. I mean, the only reason why you can go into space is because of what our ancestors left. Our children will walk down Broadway and they'll look up at those tall buildings and it will daunt them. But if they knew their history, it would not daunt them because they would know that those skyscrapers are only an extension of their own greatness. Now, white kids look up there and they feel great. They say, oh, look what my ancestors did. Look what my fathers did, because they're still working on these buildings as construction workers today. But our people are locked out of those construction jobs. That's all political. This is the work that we have to do, build the economy. But if you don't believe that you can achieve, then you can achieve.
Well, you know, this right here, downstate, was the first civil rights movement in the North when Gardner Taylor and the ministers at Cornerstone Baptist Church and sat on the cranes outside here. I always tell the black medical students who come here, I said, don't believe that you're here because you're smart. You don't know how many people have put their lives down walking down Clarkson Avenue, boycotting things that took place right here on Clarkson Avenue. And they sat on cranes, Gardner Taylor and from Siloam Baptist, Siloam Church, you know, and Cornerstone Baptist Church, and those people. They did a lot of movement here, right in Brooklyn.
Yes, I know, Dr. Dees. I mean,
to make this school sit here today.
Yes,
you know.
I mean, fight back and, you know, trying to get, break the back, not break the back, but just open the door so our people could get jobs on
construction.
Yeah, even downstate here. I mean, the history that we have captured is so huge. You talk about the South. Reverend Oliver, we just, and we're still doing it. We just was back down in Alabama not a couple years ago to recapture, to shoot what Montgomery, Alabama is like today compared to what it was like, and to interview and talk with those leaders who were still alive, who was involved in that movement as Reverend Oliver was involved in the movement. And, you know, when we know about Dr. King, but a Reverend Shuttlesworth, who just passed a couple months ago, was a tremendous figure in breaking the back of segregation in the South. So we would go back and interview all these people and look at what Montgomery is today, and with a black mayor, with a black police chief, with a black fire chief, and so forth.
Oh yes, and you know, it took not only our people to do all of this, but we integrated others in the same thought process, whether Europeans, Jewish, or what have you. They were the ones that were marching with us down in Washington to all of these things, you know. And so it was a buildup of trust between races too that made it all possible, because a lot of times when you isolate yourself, you don't have the strength of the thoughts that can come in that can help build these kind of things. I know that Albert Einstein, for example, they have a book out right now on his relationship to black folk, and down in Princeton, New Jersey, and things like this, how he had the one that sang at the Link Memorial, Marian Anderson, to stay at his house when she came down there to sing. And so Albert Einstein, the great scientist, he walked down the streets with black children holding his hands, even today, and they showed that relationship that he had because of the way the Jewish people were being treated in Europe at that time during the Holocaust and things like that.
Yes. I spoke about Professor Gabriel Ebo earlier as being one of the greatest minds, but Professor Ebo studied Dr. Einstein and studied everything that Dr. Einstein did.
Right.
And Dr. Einstein was one of his mentors. And in fact, Professor Ebo completed the work of Professor Einstein, and I'm hoping that you will have him on your program, because when we talk about the unified field theory,
Right.
that is the work that Professor Ebo was able to develop the equation for.
Yes.
And so when we talk about black people, African people, the reason that we have so much destruction
Right.
in our communities is that we don't know who we are.
I know.
We've been taught systematically
Right.
to hate ourselves, to hate blackness. I mean, the language itself codifies black as evil, as negative. So nobody, wants to be identified with that which is ugly, that which is destructive, that which is low and down and out.
Right.
And so when all of these connotations, and you haven't contributed anything to civilization, the world turns to the most intelligent for leadership. And if you are taught that you are not intelligent, or that
Right.
you're inferior, and that
Sure.
you're less, then, there's so many experiments done to show that evolves into a negative self-hate and a feeling of inferiority.
Sure.
And so they don't teach black history in school.
Okay.
They don't teach that, everything is related to the Greeks, that there's a Greek origin to science and all of this, when all of that comes out of Northern Africa,
That's right, sure.
comes out of Africa, period, the whole continent.
Sure.
So rather than being leaders, we are projected as being followers and having contributed nothing, when it is the other way around, when we contributed everything. So this history that I've spent the last 35 years
Right.
documenting and accumulating,
Sure.
and it's, I'm just blessed
Right.
to have been favored by the Creator
Right.
to follow such great men
Mhm.
and to document their work.
Right.
But I want to save it, and I need some money. I'm just putting, because, the Bible says you have not because you ask not. I need to save this. All of this 30 hours need to be transferred to hard drive. It need to be put in different libraries and different places. It needs to be organized.
In other words, you're saying a lot of these people are making a lot of money from hip hop.
Look.
Today, they could put a hip hope on it. I have a program with black children in school that if they can name, take the letter E and give all the positive words that start with the letter E, I'll give them $100, So we take it from hip hop to hip hope. Because if you hop, you can jump so high, and hope will make your mind fly.
Yes.
So just at that level, I wanted these hip-hop folks who have so much, when you see the wastage of stuff in cars and materials, things, where is the mind of this music field that has actually used our intelligence of our
Yes.
music and things like that to say, why shouldn't they be part of this preservation? Rather than, because the hip hop itself will fade away. It's going to fade away.
Yes.
But look how they can make a definite commitment to show how they even got to the point where they could be an entertainer. We have in the African Poetry Theater a doctor with John Watusi Branch. Instead of entertainment, we need entertainment.
Yes. Yes.
You see, and when you have entertainment, you can grow and you can build. But you don't build on entertainment. I mean, that makes money, but it doesn't last much in history or change of history.
That is.
And so unless we get ourselves together in thinking like this, with this massive amount of money that moves among football players and basketball players and all these kind of sports, where somebody told me the other day, one of the sports people went and bought a $27,000 wristwatch. A $27,000 wristwatch. $27,000 could take you out that basement. I mean, in a sense, or start it.
Yes.
You know what I'm talking about? And what a difference a day would make, as my friend Brooke Benton used to sing, "What a
Yeah,
difference a
that's
day
true.
make." He was
I
one of my
loved him. I
patients. He
loved
was
him.
my
Yeah.
patients. You know?
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, yeah. And in fact, we wrote the first Black Santa Claus song called "Soul Santa." And so, there's no Santa Claus song with a black Santa Claus in it in the world. Brooke Benton recorded that. I wrote the lyrics and music that over 30 years ago, and it's still played all over the world. And it says simply this: since nobody has seen Santa on Christmas when he steals down the chimney with care, wouldn't it be so revealing if Santa had black kinky hair? I know his cheeks wouldn't be rosy, but you could tell it was cold when you saw his red underwear peeking over his soulful jelly roll. Now Santa's a fine soul, brother. He loves all his fellow man. He'll do anything for you, at least at all that he can. But no matter what he looks like, and no matter what you've been told, there's one thing about your Santa: he has that thing called soul.
Yeah, I love
So,
it.
but I'm just saying that, just throwing that in to give a person like myself, who are many, many thousands, if we could put those many, many thousands together in dollars, we could save our history and make it impactful upon our young.
This is the reason why we have to do this. The cosmogony, or the philosophy of African people, and I don't want to romanticize Africa, but historically, has been oneness with the universe. It wasn't that they had so many gods, but they saw themselves as the microcosm of the macrocosm. And today, with the world, with every nation, with its hand on the trigger, ready to destroy planet Earth, the Creator is speaking through so many minds to create the space in which we can bring about disengagement. That's what we need more than anything else.
Right.
And our history puts us in a leadership position. Our history puts us in a leadership position to be at the table of nations. And that's why President Barack Obama was really elected. People saw within him this hope that he would bring about that space where we could have disengagement and create enough time for us to heal the planet and heal ourselves. I'm not a racist person. What has been done to us as a people is horrendous and it's horrible. And like you, a doctor, I'm a minister, and it's about healing that hurt and that destruction which has been laid on our people. And so I'm prepared to, our time is ending.
No, that's okay.
That's what this whole struggle for me has been about, in trying to document this history, in trying to find who we are as a people and what has been our contributions to world civilization and to humanity, so that we can sit at the table.
Well, Minister Brown, thank you so much for being with us today. And to you out there who, I'm talking to all of you all, Jay-Z, Bill Cosby, all those kind of folks, there's a lot of money to do all of these kind of things, and we really need the help, financial help, to take all of these thousands of hours of taping of our history and not to let it get destroyed, because it does get destroyed. Believe me when I tell you, it goes like a flash, just like that. And so I want you to continue on, Minister Brown, to continue what you're doing. And to you folks out there, I hope you will raise your consciousness that we can be better, we can do better, we must do better if we will not fail, because there's no way in the world, as what's happening today with our young people, that we would be able to survive this Holocaust that's happening to us. And so this is Dr. Dees, hopefully to see you the next time with Minister Brown again to give more history. See you the next time.
Thank you.